aqua friends, welcome to my channel. Today I have an abstract loose sunflower field that I hope you paint along with me. So I will be working a lot of wet on wet to keep things nice and loose. I have a very soft sky that I used some phthalo blue. And another thing that I am doing is holding my brush higher up, and I'm actually trying to hold it looser, holding it a little bit more gingerly, just to loosen up the objects that I'm painting. So I'm making the dots smaller in the distance, and as you get to the foreground, I'm making the dots bigger for the flowers. In between the flowers, while it's wet, I'm dropping in a neutral green color because as things go off in the distance, they're not as bright and they're not as saturated. Now in the foreground, I'm adding in a little bit extra water there, using more sap green so that it's a brighter green. In the foreground, I'm using some darker greens. There's a lot of shadow in between all of these sunflowers, and so I'm dropping in those lines. I lifted up a section where I wanted to add some more yellow flowers. And off in the distance, I'm putting in some of those mountain and trees. I'm still keeping things fairly loose. My paper is drying, and so those mountains do have a hard edge, but they're still very soft. I'm dropping in those mid-area trees, and I'm using the same greens. I'm doing the trees almost wet on dry, and my brush strokes are more defined, but I'm still trying to do it very loose. And then in the middle, I'm dropping in some extra watery paint. Now that the foreground has dried a little bit, I am loosely putting in the idea of some petals here, loosely. So I'm trying to keep in my mind that this is abstract. I'm not going for detail at all. I'm just basically going for the shapes. And the more in the distance that we get, there's no petals that I'll be painting. It's just blobs, right? I'm getting all those colors that I need in there. And so this painting has some hard edges and some soft edges, but everything is still pretty loose. I'm picking up some burnt sienna for the middle of the sunflowers. And notice I'm just dropping that in, and it will bleed a little bit because I had just painted those petals very loosely. So when the whole thing dried, I wasn't happy with how that yellow bled up into the sky a little bit too much. So I kind of made that into a mountain range area where that warm light is coming through. And I actually really like the effect, and toned down that purple onto the side there. I'm adding some more, sort of like a glaze of the yellow that I used. And that's it. This literally, folks, took me a half hour to do. It's a 1-layer painting. I didn't really wait for it to dry, except for my boo-boo mistake where I put in that tiny little bit of mountains. Thank you so much for watching and being here with me today. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and if you like my artwork, please like and subscribe. I will see you next week.